All right, welcome back to another episode of Blown Coverage. I'm Mike Bell with my co-host Caleb Schwer. All right, Caleb, we haven't talked since the last set of playoff games, and now we have the next four games taking place. In the first one just on Wednesday, and then the next three on Thursday. And I think it's going to be exciting. I know Texas plays, I believe, on that Wednesday. I think I remember you saying that maybe you can't watch it. And we have a couple more bowl games that we don't necessarily have to get into. But you were just saying that it seems like every game has the making to be a good game. So I am pretty excited. I think it's going to be a great, uh, what is it, quarterfinal? So,
Yeah.
yeah, what are your general thoughts?
Before we go there, I think we have to backtrack to your game and just briefly discuss that, just for mine and your sake.
Um, we can. The only thing is, oh, I mean, look, I guess that is my team, and then you have your team as well. So if we just want to focus on the one game, we can. It kind of goes. So why don't we do this? I'll talk about that, and that's kind of a good lead into Miami, Ohio State. So basically, my answer to that is going to be why Miami has no shot against Ohio State, and why A&M, quite frankly, wouldn't have had a shot either. You
Not many
know,
teams would have, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but I don't know. You could paint a picture where if A&M had gone and they just blew Miami out, or they just looked really solid on offense, you could say, "Oh, okay, maybe A&M could put up a fight." And I don't feel that way. If A&M would have pulled it off at the end, or now Miami obviously winning, I just don't see it. Especially against Ohio State, you just got to have an offense, I think. But to talk about the game, I guess I thought it was very disappointing on a lot of levels because I don't think anything of Miami. I think they have a solid defense. I think it is a legitimate defense. Obviously, they've got Ruben Bay and all that. I get it. But I said against Texas and I said against Miami that it's on one man and it's on one man only, and that is Marcel Reed. And it looks like A&M has a Marcel Reed problem. I think to only score 3 points in a game against a team that is around equal competition is inexcusable. And in big games, it does seem like the A&M offense going back to last year, since Colin Klein came to A&M, has not been good. And I think I really thought the game was unacceptable. Against Texas, do I think A&M should have beat Texas like overall in terms of like the team versus team? Yes, but on that day, Texas was the better team, and I'll give Texas that. I do not feel that way about Miami, and that's why this one is so frustrating. And turnovers, Marcel, them not throwing the ball downfield. Now maybe they're not throwing it downfield because they know he can't. I continue to say I don't know. You got to take a risk. And yeah, I just thought it was very bad from A&M. I was impressed with their defense. Carson Beck, I think, looked awful. We completely took Malachi Tony out of the game. He was a non-factor. Their entire offense was a non-factor the entire game. And A&M had opportunities to score, couldn't
The only
score.
thing that I was surprised about with like concerning A&M's defense was just the Miami running back. Like I think the last drive or the second to last drive offensively for them, he had like 75 yards rushing. But before that, he
Right.
had around 80. Like so your defense gave up quite a bit of rushing yards, which I think is obvious, which is with a low scoring game, that's definitely the difference maker there. You know, what Marcel Reed did not help, but I don't know.
I
I'm
got
kind
to
of
tell you,
surprised.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that was the difference maker. If the A&M defense gives me that every game, and our weakness has been against the run, and it was against Texas, same thing. We bottled up the run in both games decently well, but then there were just some big runs that kind of made the yardage look like it was more than it was. That's not why we lost the game. That's not why. The problem is the offense. The offense not moving the ball and not scoring. The run defense has to be better, and we just brought in a guy. I think his last name Smith, Elijah Smith, or something. He's been with A&M before, and he's supposed to help our D line as a D line coach. Whatever. It absolutely has to be better. I won't argue with you on that. That's not why we lost. The defense has been fine. It is 100% an offensive problem, and I think it's a Marcel problem more specifically. Problem is, I don't know what you can do about that because he's going to be the guy next year. He's small and he's just limited.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say I don't really know of like if there's going to be anybody in that quarterback room to really like push him, put pressure on him to. I'm sure he's going to like want to improve. Obviously, not every college quarterback does, but sometimes like the more pressure a quarterback has on them, like the more strict they're going to be on diets, and I don't know every level of preparation. So I don't know. I think A&M will be like an interesting team to see next year. Number one, do I know like exactly what you're losing to the draft or transfer portal yet? No, but it'll be interesting to see. I think your offensive line though is going to kind of go through what Texas's did this year, next
right.
year, because a lot of like seniors, juniors. It's like very heavy, like upperclassmen, which that's not fun. So we'll kind of see how you guys are in the portal. Um, but anyway, we could lead into the Miami and Ohio State game, I guess, if you want to.
All I have to say, I'll just go quickly. I think Miami they're fraudulent,
Yeah,
and I think Carson Beck is bad. Malachi Tony is very good. Ruben Bain very good. Their defense is solid.
yeah.
Other than
Their
that, do I
defense may be able to keep them in the game, but
right
I
right? Can I
mean,
see
Ohio
this?
State just has too many weapons. So it's
Yeah,
and
and
Miami
off a
does,
loss.
frankly. Do what?
Coming off a loss, and it's hard to imagine Mario Cristobal putting together like two really good games.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say other than, the over under total is 40 and a half, so it could be like a low scoring game. I could see that. I think Ohio State's just going to find a way and they're going to be pissed off
yeah,
about the last loss and they're going to pull away. That's really all I have to say.
yeah. And I would agree with you on that. I think Ryan Day is like one of the better coaches in college. Um, I don't know before like last year or this year there was actually a lot of talk like um, about like the Michigan game, and just like, oh, can this guy ever do it or whatever. But I've always thought he's a really good coach. And I think he's like night and day difference, but maybe not night and day difference, but I think he is a huge improvement over Mario Cristobal. So I think on a coaching like landscape, I think Ryan Day is hugely better. I don't even know if that's like a good wording there, but anyway, whatever. I think Ryan Day is a really good coach. I think he's better than Mario Cristobal because he like every year he's got like one questionable call and whatnot, or one questionable game. It's like, okay, man, you really just kind of screwed your team. Seems like every year anyway. So next game, I think will be interesting to go into. Let's just go into the 11 o'clock game on New Year's Day, Oregon, Texas Tech. What are your thoughts on that game?
I think of all the games, it's probably the one I'm most looking forward to. And it's kind of the one where you least know what to expect.
Yeah,
It seems like we've been saying all season, not quite sure what to expect of Tech. They haven't faced anybody outside the Big 12, and you know what we kind of think of the Big 12. So, nevertheless, they've been a very solid team. They've been blowing people out too. It just seems like they've kind of got a little bit of everything. Great D line, obviously Jacob Rodriguez, Heisman candidate, and then their offense has been very good. Morton as quarterback, so it's just going to be interesting to see what they're like against a team like Oregon that has not played in a while now.
yeah, it's
And
been I would say that's a huge thing. Oregon, they played the 20th of December, so like um, well, 9 days ago now. But when they play, it's going to be around 10 days, so a week and a half roughly. Okay, or not 10 days, probably about what two, three, so 12 days. So a little just under like 2 weeks. But for Texas Tech, it's going to almost be a month, man. I think that's going to be like a preparation. I expect that to be like to a T, but I
you
think
have
there's
this.
like,
You mean Oregon's been a month and Tech has been 12 days? Because Oregon
uh,
hasn't played forever, and Texas Tech was in the Big 12 championship. I think that's what you meant to say.
no, Oregon played on the 20th against JMU and beat them, and
Oh,
Texas
that's
Tech
right.
played the
That's right.
6th.
That's right. I forgot. Well, they basically didn't play, in fairness.
Yeah.
But yes, yes.
So I think that's going to be huge. You know, and we'll see if if it's an advantage or disadvantage for Tech. You know, that's just a long time not to actually play like a real game. You know, there's a difference I think between practice, no matter if it's the scout team or whatever. I think there's a huge difference between that versus like a real opponent and like real time, that kind of thing. So, and then not to say that Oregon, I don't really think too much of the JMU outing, but I don't know. We'll kind of see how that uh, plays out, I guess. But you're exactly right. I mean, you don't know what to expect. Both really good defenses, interesting offenses. Right now Dante Moore has a lot of hype around him. So I don't know. Don't know what to expect. That's what I meant to look at. I saw that Oregon's favored by 2.5 points. Yeah, 52.5 points is what they have it here. So, okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
no, I think it's gonna be fascinating. Oregon number one in explosive plays. Texas Tech is number four in defending explosive plays.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a strength on strength. You know about both these teams in the trenches. Obviously, I was just talking about how good Texas Tech is, in the D line, and Oregon is very good at running the ball. So I don't know. I look at this as two elite teams, but it's two elite teams that you could argue. I don't want to say I haven't faced anybody. I think people say that too often, like, oh, they haven't faced anybody. But it's two teams that, whenever you find out the winner of this one, it just feels like they're going to have a lot of momentum going into that next game.
Yeah.
And Oregon was in a similar spot, somewhat similar spot last year, to where, remember, they were the number one team, and then they got knocked off. And I think they remember that, and I think they're trying to this year take advantage of maybe their seeding a little bit more.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very excited. It'd be cool, just as a fan of most Texas teams besides one specifically, to see a Texas team advance. I like Texas Tech. I've never had an issue with them, and I think it'd be cool to see them advance. So yeah, I think it's going to be just a great game.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. Obviously, I'll be rooting for Texas Tech. I'm not the biggest fan of them. I'd probably say the only reason why I would go for them is because my grandfather went there and graduated from there. But anyway, I think it'll be very interesting. I guess we can wait to say our picks for personal this upcoming week, so we don't give anything away. But um,
I can tell you, I don't know who I'm going to
to
choose exactly. So
what?
I don't know who I'm going to choose anyway.
Yeah, I don't either. Um, I don't know, man. I would need to look at like Oregon's injury report, because I remember like I can't remember if it was against JMU or the game before that they had several key injuries, and just to make sure those people are back. Because really, man, I think that I'd probably give the edge maybe to Oregon just because maybe they have more offensive weapons than what Tech does. But other than that, I think they're pretty even kill. Like both their defenses are pretty good. Maybe give a slight edge to Oregon's secondary, but the front seven for each elite. So I'm kind of interested to see it. I would not be surprised if it's a low scoring game, and maybe that's kind of where I'm going to lean towards is a low scoring game, and I think that would be pretty exciting too, to be honest. So I guess we could go on to the next game unless you had something else to say.
No, we can go into the next game. Next game would be 3 o'clock. Right after that, Alabama number nine versus number one Indiana. Indiana favored by 7.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is. What do you think of the spread, and what do you think of just the game in general?
I would maybe agree with that. Kudos to Alabama for coming back the way they did against Oklahoma. I did not foresee that coming. I don't know if you did or not, but
No,
I
I
believe it
think
was like 17-0 or whatever at the beginning. And I was like, oh, wow, dude. I'm actually very surprised by this. Um, and I was even more shocked when Alabama came back and basically shut out OU for all intents and purposes. So I just don't think that kind of stuff is going to be able to happen with Indiana, though, to be honest with you. Indiana is too good to come out flat and then, have to kind of pull a comeback type of thing that they did the first time. So I think Indiana is going to win. And, I wouldn't be too against saying that they cover, but you know, anything could happen. It's a playoff game, so
Right. It does seem like in these spots, granted, Indiana has had enough experience now, but Alabama has more players on their team that has been in these situations.
yeah.
And, Alabama is going to be giving everyone their best shot. And there's part of them that's going to be saying, hey, no team should be favored by 7 against us. Do we really think, now Georgia blew out Alabama, but do we really think Indiana is that much better than Alabama? And just saying that out loud, I actually would say, yeah, probably, because we can't just forget.
I just think they've shown more consistency than what Alabama has,
Well,
and
consistency.
that would be easier for Indiana to do versus Alabama because the schedules were markedly different. Different. Alabama's schedule is one of the most brutal ones, in college. Indiana, I won't say they had like a cream puff schedule, but they didn't necessarily have like if you want to compare schedules, it's kind of a night and day thing. So, but when it mattered, when they went and played Ohio State and beat them in the Big Ten championship, they looked like an all around good football team,
Yeah.
as good
Well,
as you can. I mean,
that's another
against
psychological thing, though. Is
yeah,
there any part of
are
Indiana?
they
Granted,
cocky?
they're Indiana still. They can't really afford to be sitting too high. But are they saying like, "Hey, we just beat the best team. Now we've got to go play other games"? It's like it's hard to like say they're not going to take Alabama seriously. I think they're going to
Yeah,
take them seriously. But is there just a psychological part of them that's complacent? I don't
yeah.
know the answer to that. That's just something to think about. But you know, I, like, would it shock me if Alabama won this game? No, but I do think you have to look at the last like 4 months, 3 months of play, and just realize that something has been off with Alabama. And look,
Yeah,
they seem to have solved something against OU because for them to score the way they were scoring on OU was really just impressive. No one's
it
done that
was.
all year, other than I guess maybe Ole Miss. And uh, maybe they found something. I don't know. It will be an exciting game to watch, but I do think there is something just special about this Indiana team, and I think it's going to take an elite team to beat Indiana because Indiana themselves are elite. So I think the teams that could beat them are Georgia and Ohio State, and then honestly, I'd like to see Oregon against them again. That could be cool. So, but I just don't think Alabama's at that level yet,
Yeah,
and,
I don't.
and
Well, with just them being so one dimensional on offense for the most part, and their
right.
defense just being a little bit more leaky than what you really can go into the playoff and expect a championship with.
Yep. No, agreed. That's pretty much all I have to say there.
Yeah,
I guess we can move on to what I think is also going to be a very good game. It is too bad Lane Kiffin is not the
different
coach.
storylines. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple storylines that will come out of this.
Well, storylines, but I think it just has the
Well,
potential to be
yeah,
a
I know. I'm
good
just
game.
saying, like game and storylines.
Yes, yes. Yes. Number 6, Ole Miss versus Georgia. Number 3, Georgia. 7 o'clock, also on ESPN. They're all on ESPN. Georgia favored by 6.5. This has the highest over/under total of 55.5. Last time it was a shootout. You would expect the same here. I was watching LSU versus Houston the other day. Houston beat them, and they were interviewing Lane Kiffin and his thoughts on the game. And he was saying, "Well, it's probably the best offense in the league right now, Ole Miss, which is probably fair, versus what has been lately the best defense. Not for the year necessarily, but lately for the at the end
Yeah,
of the day,
the
you
whole
saw
team. Yeah,
you just saw what um, Alabama did to OU, put up that many points. But look at what they did against Georgia. Talking about Alabama, they were only able to put up 7.
yeah,
So something to keep in mind. Lane Kiffin is one of, if not the best play callers in the league, and you do think that is the type of thing that would cost Ole Miss at some point, and it would make sense to cost them against a team like Georgia. I would love to see this game be competitive. I think it will be because I just think
yeah,
Ole Miss does have the offense. They're going to score, but Ole Miss hasn't really been in these situations before. Georgia has,
yeah.
and
Kirby
yeah,
Smart, man, he's hard to beat in these situations, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. In fact, I would say it would even borderline shock me if Ole Miss won this game.
Oh, for
To be
sure. I think it would too, just because, you're talking about just how much the defense for Georgia has improved over the last couple, like probably the last month or a month and a half. I mean, the same thing goes for the offense. Each week they kept getting better and better and better, and look, just as a team, they almost look unstoppable. So I'm not going to necessarily put, like, I do agree with you. Lane Kiffin's probably one of the best play callers in the country, but I think not Charlie Weiss, but the offensive coordinator for Ole Miss that they've allowed to coach. Um, but he's
him
probably,
either.
I think he's going to LSU after this game or whatever. But anyway, I think he's going to call good enough plays. I don't think that'll be the issue. I just think Ole Miss, yes, it's probably one of the better offenses in the country, if not the best overall offense. Their defense is just, I don't know if they're going to have enough in the tank to really stop Georgia and Gunnar Stockton, with what they've been able to do in their run game. That's my question.
Yeah, no, agreed. It is kind of a game that you just it kind of feels like you don't quite know what to expect.
Yeah.
But I would say, like I said, I do kind of expect a good game. At
I
least for
would
like,
be, yeah. If I had to sit here and say how I'd guess it would go is like maybe it's competitive going into halftime and then Georgia separates after that.
yeah, no, I can
We'll
definitely
see
see that.
though. Yeah.
What I was gonna say is what could be, if Georgia wins this game as we expect, the next round is going to be a lot of fun. Georgia versus Ohio State,
Dude, that yes, for sure.
as especially as Georgia has come on. They've just really, because it's safe to say, like beginning of the season, maybe even middle of the season, Georgia did not feel like an elite team at all. Like they just had like a lot of struggle. Now it's like, okay, they're reaching that elite level. They're coming on at the right time, and that would just be one heck of a matchup. Ohio State versus Georgia. So
Right.
I am rooting for that result selfishly as a football fan, because I would just say it's just hard to imagine Ole Miss running the table. Um, but
Oh
that's,
yeah, for
if
sure.
we beat Georgia, maybe I'll feel differently.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the fashion that they were able to beat Georgia in. Um, yeah, it would be interesting. Um, something earlier we kind of, we briefly talked about the Ohio State Miami, or we talked about it for a little bit, but one thing that I thought was interesting, Kirk Herbstreit brought it up, like I forgot what game it was, but was game day at the A&M Miami game? Okay, so it must have been that one. So he was talking about how like the 2002 national championship when Miami and Ohio State played and stuff like that. And I think it was like a controversial call. I don't know the specifics of it, but anyway, so they'll be playing probably some like highlights of that game and stuff like that. So the lead up to the game will be very cool and interesting, I think. So I don't know. We're getting to some of the best football, and like you said, it's a shame that the first week of this playoff game or the playoffs were kind of a joke, in all fairness, to be honest with you. Like two good games, half of them were a joke, I would say. And we won't get into that. Hopefully that's fixed, but we're really about to get to the cream of the crop football for the year, and it's kind of bittersweet because it's about to end. So anyway, a couple things I think are very interesting. Okay. So I saw today that Penn State hired USC's defensive coordinator, and he made markedly improved. Like he has made very big improvements for USC's defense in Lincoln Riley this year. And he's going. Apparently, it's an alma mater, or like the defensive coordinator at USC this year. His alma mater is Penn State. So anyway, he was a considered a top defensive coordinator. So him going back there with Matt Campbell at Penn State, I think that'll be very interesting. Good move on Matt Campbell, which I didn't expect anything less other than good moves. I think something that's happened since we've been on here, Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan. I think that is a home run hire for sure.
Yep.
Um, I forget exactly when he left Utah. I think I want to say it was like within this week or something like that. And I don't know if part of it was just like, that's very odd though, like, because he announced he left, and frankly, he's just one of those coaches that the only reason why Utah I feel like is even relevant year in year out is because of him and what he's been able to do there. His systems, and he left, or he decided to leave, and then now all of a sudden he's a coach at Michigan. I don't know. It was kind of interesting, I guess, but given the state of the program at Michigan, he's a steady guy. He's I think he's got a proven track record. Because do you expect Utah to be a powerhouse? No, but and did he go win a championship at Utah? No, but then again, it's that Utah is a hard place to go do that at. He's going to have more resources and whatnot at Michigan, so I'm excited to see what he's able to do there. So
Yeah, no, I mean, well said. I wouldn't add much. I do think it was the best hire that maybe they could have got
for
of
sure,
people.
especially now, that's the thing that really sucked with Michigan was like all the cream of the crop guys you could have picked on, they were already picked over, because they weren't expecting to fire Sharon more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I think it'll be good there. I think Matt Campbell should be good at Penn State. The only thing is with him is just it may take him a couple of years at Penn State
yeah,
just because they only had like what 2 recruits this year. I mean, that's
yeah,
tough. That's a tough thing to just deal with.
oh for sure.
So, but I am excited for the Big Ten. That is interesting on the USC side because their defense. You kind of think their offense is always going to be okay under Lincoln Riley. They kind of need that
But
consistency.
yeah, right. The defense, though, my gosh.
Yeah, right, right. So what's interesting is I think everyone's going to be looking at USC this next year, and this is going to be kind of like the year that puts Lincoln Riley potentially on the hot seat. So if they're a disaster, that's probably it for Lincoln Riley. And
Well, I know their top wide receiver is going to the draft. I don't know if the quarterback has declared or not. I mean, oh well,
I
we'll
haven't
figure
seen
that
that
out.
yet.
Okay, I haven't either off the top of my head. However, it has been crazy with the holidays, so there's a chance I could have missed it. But you know, and I mean, rightfully so. He's been there. What? I mean, this maybe be his fourth or fifth year, and what have they done? Honestly, the biggest accomplishment he's done there is Caleb Williams winning the. I believe he won the Heisman at. Yeah, he won the Heisman at USC. I mean, what's to that? There's nothing else really, to be honest with you. He has a number one recruiting class this
Right,
year,
that's the
but
thing is he's found a way to recruit very well, but it's just like
yeah, this year, but he's just I don't know. It's like no matter what his recruiting classes have been, the offense has been great, defense has been trash. No matter who they've recruited, and the entire time he's been there, he's been able to recruit okay at least every year. Maybe not the number one recruiting class, but I don't know. I'm curious to see who he fills in at the defensive coordinator spot and um, what he's able to do next year. As far as the Texas Michigan game, to be honest with you, I'm I am going to miss it. And I was telling my dad earlier, I'm not necessarily as upset about it as I typically would have been in years past because just as many people have hit the transfer portal and kind of the same sentiment that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks is just like if your team's not in the playoff, then the bowls just I don't know, they're just it's kind of this weird thing that's happening. The only aspect of it that I would be excited about and that kind of sucks to miss is just to see the young players that fill in those roles that maybe we haven't gotten to see as much of throughout the year, see how they do in the bowl game, because we do have a lot of talented young players that will, be able to play now because of either they have elected to go into the transfer portal or the draft. And, you know, something that really sucks in that I'm not necessarily going to be concerned about yet. But for Texas, we've lost four running backs alone into the transfer portal. And I think we had targeted the Florida, I think, freshman running back, which if we were able to get him, that'd be a great pickup. But I mean, here's the deal: we've got to get the lineman first. And I was kind of telling my dad that we could get some of the best running backs in the nation, but if Sark doesn't hit the portal really hard and get really good offensive linemen, it's going to be all for nothing. To be honest with you, kind of a funny note onto that is, and I don't know if it's real or not, to be honest with you, but I saw that Trey Wisner, that like you guys were interested in picking him up, which funny enough, Trey Wisner, I think he didn't even get over 100 yards at all this year until like we played you guys, oddly enough. And then the year before, I mean, he had like almost 200 yards, I think. But so, I mean, if you guys got him, I mean, hey, he'd be a good pickup. But anyway, um, yeah, I think that's about it on the Michigan game. I don't necessarily know too much about their transfer portal draft situation, but you just get the sense that their program is not necessarily I feel like it's in a better state now that they have a great proven head coach. But before, the offensive coordinator was filling in, and, I don't necessarily have a comment on him or anything, but you just kind of felt like, dang, man, they were building something special here. Is it just going to crumble, fall, and put them back into the depths like they were for a while? And, what's going to happen with Michigan was my question, so.
Yeah. So yeah, as far as that game specifically, it is too bad, and it is too bad on some of these teams. It depends on the bowl game. I do
Yeah.
think Michigan Texas is one of those, but a game that is not one of those that will be fun to watch is Iowa Vanderbilt. I think that's a great matchup, and both
Yes.
teams I think are going to be taking it seriously. That's just an example. There are others, but back to Michigan Texas real quick. It still could have been a great game. I think both teams still would have taken it seriously if it wasn't for like the Sharon Moore thing. And then now, Michigan's head like just can't be in it completely the way that it would have been. And then Texas, I don't know what to think about that, but especially with the portal stuff now, it does seem like, okay, like you can't you just can't take it as seriously as you used to, because it used to be like a big deal, like, hey, we won the Citrus Bowl, non-ironically, like that actually is kind of a big deal. But now it's just like there's always that asterisk
Well,
of like,
yeah, it's a good bowl, and Michigan. Like, if nobody left the portal or nothing happened, I think it would have been a good bowl game matchup. Michigan was a good team.
yeah. What are your thoughts on so many Texas players leaving? Because that I have seen that, and it has been a surprise to me. There's been quite a few, more than I would have expected, that are entering the portal.
I think the running backs. I think the reason why they have left is because we or for whatever reason, Coach Sarkisian let our running backs coach go. So I think that's one aspect of it. I was actually very surprised that Trey Wisner left because he was pretty much the only consistent running back that we used this entire year. And I know he doesn't necessarily look like, I'm sure whenever we played you guys, you looked at him and he was running. I'm sure you were like, dang, how the hell is he? I don't know. He just he gains yards fine. I don't know. It's just so weird. Every game, he's just like, he looks small, but he just bounces off, wiggles, gets room, whatever. And so that one really sucked. Um, Another surprise was DeAndre Moore, our wide receiver, and honestly, probably our most consistent wide receiver. He decided to go into the portal. I'm not sure what the reasoning was there because he played pretty much the whole year. He had, all things considered, with us not having a consistent offense, he had good stats. So I don't really know. I don't know if Sark was like, "Hey, I bet some of it was money related, though." You know, maybe like they think, "Hey, I'm worth more than this," and Sark maybe thinks he can go in the portal and get a comparable player for maybe a cheaper price.
Apparently, Wisner wanted one. I don't know if this is true, but apparently he wanted 1 million, which is a lot for a running back. So that's kind
Yeah,
of what.
non-quarterback. Yeah.
Right, right. I don't know if that's true, but that's the rumor. Didn't you guys also lose a linebacker?
Oh yes, Liana Lafau. I'm very surprised by that too. He's been a starter, like I think a 3-year starter for us. That I think the reason behind that one was like the play style of defense. But here's the deal, and I don't know the differences between PK. So Pete Kwiatkowski, the guy that Sark let go and we
We need to talk
rehired
about
Will
that
Muschamp.
too. Yeah.
Um, I don't know the differences, but LaFau left because he didn't like the way he was playing. It didn't match like how it didn't suit his play style. Um, and I don't know if Will Muschamp's defense does the. I think it's different than what PK does, but I don't know if the linebackers what exactly the differences are there. But I think that was surprising too. To be honest, I thought it was pretty funny. Somebody commented, "Oh, so Sark's going to fix our offense by letting our defensive coordinator go." I see, and I thought that was so true because it's like, and frankly, like we let our running backs coach go, and it was not our running. Like maybe the only thing was like we have just no like our running back room has been obliterated for like 2 years. Like not really healthy. And I don't know if you blame that on the strength and conditioning coach or the running back coach specifically, but I don't know. Our issue was our offensive line, not the running backs, not necessarily the wide receivers either. It was offensive line, and I'm not worried yet, but I'm
I've
curious.
seen a lot of Texas fans have issue with the fact that you guys did let your defensive coordinator go. Apparently, he was overall doing well, and it seemed like an odd move
Yes,
to a lot of people. So, but who
yeah.
knows what's going on internally? I guess maybe they just didn't get along or see eye to eye on the
Well,
way
yeah,
direction. But
Steve Sarkisian in a press conference actually, and I was surprised he even said this because he typically doesn't like say he didn't come out right out and say like anything bad about PK, but he was like, um, bringing Will Muschamp in here, I'll be able to pay more attention to the offense and not have to, So in a sense, it kind of comes off like, oh, so was he having to micromanage PK and that kind of stuff? Like what was he having to do behind the doors that I don't know. But our defense, listen, we weren't 10-3 or 9-3 because of our defense. It wasn't as good as it was like maybe like a year or two ago, but our secondary was pretty young, pretty fresh. So that's going to just happen naturally. So I told my dad whenever that first happened, I was like, man, that's kind of crazy actually. Like, am I pumped about Will Muschamp coming back? Because back when he was our defensive coordinator, that's, 2008, 2009, very good defenses. In 2010, very good defenses. And back when he first got hired, everybody was like showing all the memes of him and Nick Saban yelling on the sideline, and then there was one where he was like like just staring at the quarterback and like frothing at the mouth kind of thing, and it was pretty funny. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to seeing what uh, Coach Sarkisian does in the portal. He's got to be active, probably more active than he has been at Texas yet this year. And yeah, I don't know.
yeah, last thing on in terms of coaching and coaching changes and hires, I love what Bill Belichick has done, bringing in Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator.
I saw
Because
that.
if Bill Belichick has had a weakness, hate to say it, it has been offense, recently. And Bobby Petrino has always had great offenses. I will say when he was at A&M, we still didn't have the best offense, but we also had like quarterback injuries like crazy. So, and also I think Jimbo. Now here's the thing, and this is where I want to go with this. My understanding, and this is what Bobby Petrino was kind of saying. Jimbo Fisher brought Bobby Petrino in to still run Jimbo Fisher's offense, and there was just pressure on Jimbo Fisher to hire an offensive coordinator because before that it was just Jimbo Fisher running, the offense basically. He was the de facto offensive coordinator. I could see Bill Belichick doing the same thing, to be honest with you, and bringing in like, oh, I'll bring in the high profile guy, but it's still going to be my offense. I don't know about that though because I feel like Bobby Petrino would be like, okay, I've been through this before. Like I've got to run my own system, and I hope Bill Belichick knows that. Look, he knows he can coach defense, but offense has been an issue. So let Bobby Petrino do his thing. They've got a great recruiting class coming in. I think it's the number 17th class, which is really good for North Carolina.
That
And
is, especially with
they're
how they did this year. So
right, right. So, and then they're, I think, pretty good in the transfer portal. I don't know what they'll do at quarterback. Gio Lopez is okay. Maybe they'll go with him. Maybe they'll try to bring somebody in. I don't know, but just have to say, as somebody
I
who's
saw
rooting,
somebody left them. A quarterback left them this week.
yeah, he was a freshman quarterback, but I don't think he was going to start or
Yeah, I don't
anything.
know
I don't
anything
think the issue
other.
is
Yeah.
there, but either way, I like the direction they're going. I hope they can do something with it, and it's just a personal team I'm rooting for. But that's all I've got on that.
I the only thing I would say to that is maybe like I just don't know if how big the leash is on Bill Belichick for him to sit there and I don't want to say like sabotage the offense by just kind of bringing in Bobby Petrino just for him to run the offense. I don't think he's got that much because I think there was like actually a good amount of pressure on him like this year because of remember there were like lots of reports of parents getting pissed off and saying like man what's going on up here is not necessarily the best and so I don't know like in he was able to not there wasn't like really any drama around him that I can think of in the NFL off the top of my head, but well, he was with the Patriots, obviously, but he had a huge leash, right? Just because of how successful he is. Here, it's I don't want to say he's like reproving himself, but it is a different landscape. So therefore, I just don't think his leash is that big. And Bobby Petrino, I mean, look what he was able to do at Arkansas. And who's the superpower? I mean, I think their quarterback was kind of an anomaly. The guy could run and he could throw. So I think he had a good quarterback to work with, but who else? And they had one of the best offenses in the country. So I think that's a great pickup for him. Hopefully they just utilize him.
Yep, agreed. All right, well, that's pretty much all I've got. Is there anything else you want to discuss college football wise that comes to mind, or do you think we covered everything?
I think we covered everything off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll wrap it up there, and we will be back at some point next week to discuss these playoff games that we discussed today, and then of course the next round. So, all right, this has been another episode of Blown Coverage, and I will see you next time.
All right.